He has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Matthew and Mark also have an account of Jesus' preaching in Nazareth, but they skip right to the rejection of Jesus by the people of his hometown, which we'll hear next week in Luke. It is only Luke who has Jesus evoke his own Jewish tradition in the words of the prophet Isaiah. Luke's intent was to demonstrate as clearly as possible, as early in his accounting of Jesus' life and death as possible, who this Jesus really is, the actual Messiah who will liberate the oppressed people of God. The vision of the kingdom that Isaiah and Jesus, in Isaiah's words, proclaim is so captivating. The hope it engenders is life-giving, sustaining. It speaks to a part of me that is older than I am, the deepest sense of home I have, a place where each of us is liberated to be fully ourselves, and that full selfhood is not a threat to anyone else's full selfhood. In hearing it, especially from the mouth of Jesus himself, the great Messiah revered by me and the crowds, stating so firmly that now it is fulfilled, I know with certainty just how much my own fullness, peace, wildest joy, and that of every other person is somewhere already present. This scene from Luke is so much more powerful for me than that in Matthew or Mark, which lack this supposed Isaiah text that Jesus proclaimed. And yet, in the deep sense of coming home that it evokes, that homecoming feeling for me, the feeling of hope itself, there is also a deep disappointment. The scripture seems so clearly not to have been fulfilled. Even in the very local community Jesus served, never mind in our time now, there are still so many who need healing, who need liberation. Jesus, so very high on the pedestal, praised by everyone, by me, all eyes fixed on him, including mine, is tumbling down, free falling from on high. To so many, it seems that he slams right into the ground, and the great Messiah just poof, disappears, never actually there. During my time interning as a hospital chaplain, I met very many people who believed so faithfully in this Jesus on the pedestal, they just wouldn't or couldn't let themselves see anything but perfection. And then, one moment, Jesus didn't deliver. As he free fell through the air, he seemed to vanish for them into thin air. And they, scared, now in pain and anxious, felt themselves to be completely left alone, holding a lie. I know that I have certainly forced myself into this situation not only with God and Jesus, but with family, with friends, with infinite situations and moments. I have so often given myself a choice only between perceiving someone or a situation as perfectly amazing, or walking away bitter and betrayed. Have any of you? There is something about this gospel passage, though, that has given me an alternative truth. I am deeply disappointed not only that the vision Luke's Jesus holds out has not yet been realized, but also that Jesus' power falls short of what I so very much wish for it. However, to me, this passage makes evident that that very disappointment is itself sacred, holy. As I was doing my sermon preparation, I stumbled upon a writer who noted that disappointment is not just the other side of hope. It exists at the edge of hope. Where hope and disappointment meet, there is tension. The only way to avoid the deep swings between the two is to ease the tension between the boundary where they meet. And so here is where the holiness comes in, the sacredness. That space where we straddle the boundary, where we let two seemingly opposite things dance around each other. In this season of Epiphany, this is what we are called to. Jesus himself was and is a dance between humanity and divinity, between God reflected all around us and God embodied in one particular person, with touchable hands and a real smile, or more often it seems, a furrowed brow. Hope and disappointment. Where these two meet and bathe each other, our life-giving hope dripping with some of our deepest disappointment. Our hollowing disappointment dripping with the peace and joy of hope. This is where God is most fully experienced. In this place of suspension, one or the other, now both, is where we are filled with the energy, the courage, the wisdom, the love necessary to make our hope an actual reality, not after we die, but here, now. The truth is that Jesus' free fall stops before he hits the ground. He comes to hover with arms out right in the middle of the air. The energy of his potential is right there for us to grasp onto. This sacred place of tension where hope and disappointment coexist is a very hard place for me to inhabit. I rather like either glossing over the disappointment and taking on a false sense of satisfaction, or succumbing to the disappointment and giving up, walking away in anger and a sense of betrayal. But that tension at the very place where they meet ensures that we are not stagnant in either the vision of our hope or the defeat of the disappointment. That tension is itself movement, innervation. James Cone, a parent of Black liberation theology, talked of the power this place of suspension has had for the Black community since their introduction to Jesus when they were slaves. He writes, being granted freedom while they are still poor. They can know that their poverty is a contrived phenomenon. This new knowledge about themselves and the world requires that the poor practice political activity against the social and economic structure that makes them poor. Without the certainty that Christ is with us as the historical Jesus was present with the humiliated and weak in Palestine, how can Black people account for the power and courage to struggle against slave masters and overseers in the 19th century and the Ku Klux Klan and police in the 20th? And I would add now the 21st. Hope-filled and yet disappointed. Fulfilled and yet unfulfilled. This is holy ground, or should I say holy air. And within it, God moves in us, by us, through us. This suspended space is where the wisdom, the love, and the courage of Jesus are most fully available to us. Where are you being called to vibrate in this sacred state of suspension? Where do you feel a tension between what you want for yourself or someone else or the world and what actually is? Can you resist the urge to either settle into an everything is fine attitude, or alternatively, to give up? Can you hover in the tension between the two?